There we go. I think we're rolling. Welcome to Heather Smith Commercial Conversations with. I am today here with Ross Thornton from Star Events.
Hello.
Morning.
Morning.
You run Star Events. You are an event company for commercial property, and the reason that we have these conversations is to show and continue to show that there are lots of people connected with this great sector of commercial property who are not necessarily surveyors, but you used to be a surveyor.
I was a surveyor, a chartered surveyor, and a commercial property agent for many years. I'm not going to say how many years, because that ages me, but yeah, lots.
And so now you're doing events. How long have you been doing that for?
Star Events was set up 16 years ago.
Wow.
So 16 years.
And what you failed to say is it's your business.
It is my business. I set it up 16 years ago, and we have had many people come and work with us, for us, and we continue to evolve.
And what sort of events are you doing?
Well, we are a corporate events company, but primarily because of my background in surveying, we do commercial property events. So it would be one-off building launches and community events for business parks, large office, multi-tenanted office buildings, that sort of thing.
And what sort of events do you do?
Well, on business parks, for example, we will do everything from Christmas events, summer fetes, barbecues, team building events, fun sort of summer things with inflatables, Easter involving the families, anything and everything. It's always a challenge trying to think of new things each year to engage occupiers, but also carry on with the things that they've loved from the years before. You know, the festive thing, everyone loves that, and everybody loves a big summer party.
I always remember when you did the Formula One pit stop challenge.
Oh, yeah.
That's something very different.
Yeah, no, that's good, and that ties in really nicely when you do like the Grand Prix.
Yes.
So June, July time when the Grand Prix is at Silverstone, that's really cool. But yeah, the pit stop challenge where you have to, against the clock, change the wheel.
Yeah.
Which is fun, team building. Same, you know, you have to work together to do it quickly.
So in these days of community building and everyone coming back to the office after COVID, are you seeing the same levels of people attending or different from before, or is it?
We're getting back to the levels now. I think this year's the first year that I've seen that we're getting back to the levels that we were at sort of 2019. It's been difficult, and I think you need to be more strategic with the day. Back in 2019, pre-COVID, you could pretty much pick any day and be guaranteed there would be a critical mass in the office 5 days a week. Now you need to know your audience. You need to know who's on the park or in the building on any given day, and also who those people are. So you need to be more strategic as to who you want at your event and how many people you need at your event as to which day of the week you pick, and know which day of the week in every different environment is different. You know, it's a different day of the week is popular in each different location.
Do you find, I mean, we do the communications on parks where you do the events for us, and we're finding at the moment that the longer we give people in terms of a save the date, people are beginning to kind of decide to come in that week on that day to attend an event that you're putting on.
Definitely. A lot of people can be flexible as to their day, or they will come in at lunchtime, even if it's not the day they're supposed to be in, just to kind of catch up with friends and also go to the event because they know it's going to be a good, fun thing to do.
Are you we're finding that employers are encouraging people to come in on that day because they want to support the landlord's event, but also they want to make sure that the events carry on and proceed?
I mean, the other thing we found after the pandemic and the COVID was that a lot of events now there's twofold. There's a lot of the more team building because they need to reconstruct that team that's now kind of dissipated because everyone's working from home. Well, not everybody, sorry. People have been working from home and they are now coming back, but not fully in the office all together on the same day. So there's a team building element which bosses are really keen on, but also the wellness and the fun aspect of coming back to work. So not just a dry team building event, but things people don't even realise, like the Formula One that you mentioned. People don't realise they're doing team building. They're just having a laugh and having fun with their friends. And even coming in on their day at working from home to see their colleagues at lunchtime, that's fostering more team togetherness and them, making memories and, oh, do you remember that thing we did last month? That was really good fun. We've got the selfie picture from the photo booth up on the wall in the kitchen and... So,
we need to remember that people have been recruited during this process and of transient last few years, and so actually it's a really good way for employers to kind of cement everyone together.
I mean, a lot of people were recruited and never actually met their colleagues. So your team building, you're getting the old team back together, as well as integrating new people who may not even have been in the office full time ever.
We're skirting around the whole COVID conversation. Do you want to talk about?
Not really.
No,
PTSD.
Do you not?
No, we can do.
How did you change stuff and during COVID, and what measures did you have to put in place that were challenging at the time, which now hopefully are a distant memory, but maybe I'm dragging it back up. But I think it's important to remember that it was a huge time for you guys as event planners.
Oh, it was massive. I mean, it wasn't just us. The whole hospitality industry just shut almost overnight. It was horrific at times, particularly at the beginning. It had a couple of effects. It really increased technology, because all of a sudden, overnight, you either had to go to online events or give up. So we attempted online events, and they work well if you're in the event industry where you do, say, conferencing or that type of thing. Whereas if you're doing property events or events where you need people to be together, we tried it. We tried it all the way through. We did do events all the way through online, and from my point of view, they were painful, because I like to interact with people. That's why I do events. And interacting with a person on a screen at the beginning and then towards the end, a blank screen, because everyone got so fed up of having their camera on that you literally just had blank screens. It's really hard. But I think we're still doing hybrid events now. People are still doing those online events. But it just changed. It just changed the whole kind of landscape and moved it forward.
I think on the parks where you and I worked together, where we were able, with landlords' approval, to go and continue the event programme, albeit online or changed or smaller numbers, we have seen that since COVID's ended, we've got better engagement on the parks where we continued, albeit everyone recognises that it wasn't as one likes to do it, and it was challenging in the moment, but I think where the effort was put in and we continued, we've had a lot more.
It was a quicker take-up after. So once we were able to go back to normal, i.e. no restrictions on numbers or distancing, because they were used to and we didn't stop, we carried on, getting people back to actually attending in real life was a lot easier, and it's almost kind of been forgotten. I mean, it's still mentioned, but it's been forgotten, and we're back to where by you. No, people do. I mean, we still get people saying, "Oh, do you remember the quiz you did in, I don't know, June 2020, where we tried to do the quiz that had been booked in real life? We just moved it online." People still mention that as a kind of a joke. I still have trauma from it, but they think it was very funny. But I think because we kept going, as soon as we could go back to normal, it was almost like, okay, that's what we do now. We don't sit at home in front of our computer, we pitch up.
Yeah. And I think from our point of view, obviously, because we do the business community asset management, we do the sort of whole strategy and about kind of making sure that everyone's represented. We feel that when it was continuing and it was continuing online, it meant that the community and the audience felt that they retained a sense of place and a sense of environment around what used to be their everyday go-to place of work. And so it was like, it's almost as if they've remembered a bit better. Whereas the parks where we didn't continue and we didn't do that, we've had to remind them that we are still doing it, we want to do it more. I mean, it's for your effort and your PTSD at the time.
That's right. I mean, it's not annoying, that's the wrong word. I don't actually know what I'm looking for now, but the parks where they did just literally pull the plug. And then wanted to start back up again this year, we are finding that we are having to start from scratch, building up that rapport with the people on site, and a lot of there has been changes, but it's literally we are starting from scratch, whereas the ones that carried on, it's almost just we're just picking it back up again and we're just carrying on as if it had never happened.
I like that.
Under the
carpet.
I like
that. Let's not talk about it anymore.
No, enough.
It's been done. It's been done. You are today wearing your beautiful pink jersey.
And green.
I'm running out of green dresses, but let's not.
I never run out of pink. Never run out of pink.
I don't think I will anyway, but everyone knows that. You are one of the people I know I think probably the only person I know who wears their brand as well as I do.
Everything is always Pantone colour matched.
It's really important, I think, to like when you're running a company to be kind of, you're automatically a figurehead, but I think that it's easier for me when I like green, so it's easy, and you love pink. So do you feel that it's easy being a female business owner out there in the commercial property sector? Is it anything you even think about?
I don't think about it. I'm a business owner. I don't think. But then, when I started in agency, there were very few.
Yeah.
Because I obviously started an agency before you did.
A little bit.
There were very few female agents in London at the time when I was a female agent in London, and it never bothered me. It just, it was just how it is. And I think I've always been of a mind that you do your job, no matter who you are, no matter whether you're male or female. So I don't really think about it.
Why do you think there's not many female business owners in the sector?
In the property sector?
Yeah, in the commercial property sector. Because there aren't many of us out there.
No, I don't know. There shouldn't be a reason.
No,
why.
I agree.
My experience of the commercial property industry was never that it was particularly biased, or it never stopped you, it never stopped me, or any of the women I know who are in the industry have never had any sort of have been held back, or you rose to dizzying heights. I got to possibly less dizzying heights. I got to some heights. They weren't dizzying. There was no smashing of ceilings, but we did really well for ourselves. We weren't held back by the fact that we were female.
But I wonder. This is one of the questions. Like, I wonder why there aren't more. I think there's more of a 50-50 intake coming in when you start now, graduates. But I still think there are still less people out there running their own thing, and there's very few females running their own thing. But there's also very few, people at the tables. There's more, don't get me wrong, but it's not yet 50-50. So that's also... But I don't know why, because it's a very friendly, generous industry. It's very achievable. We are both mothers as well, and so you can definitely do it and be a parent.
I'd say, I haven't actually looked at the statistics, but I'd say other than you, when you are my client, most of my clients are men.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of female clients who are recruiting us to do their events. We
are also often the only female voice in the room. I say we because obviously I employ other women, and we obviously go and represent Heather Smith Commercial, but we're often the only female voice
of reason.
I love that.
Brought in to just calm it all down.
I love that.
Makes sense.
How did you get into property in the first place? Obviously just last week, not many years ago.
A few years ago. When I was doing my A-levels, I had the usual career chat. And I had visions of becoming an architect. I thought that was a really kind of lovely career to go into. But back a few years ago, when I was looking at my career, last week, you had to be able to draw to be an architect, and I couldn't draw. So my careers advisor suggested that I look at other careers in property. Surveying was mentioned, and I originally started my degree as a building surveyor.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
I didn't know that.
No.
Revelation.
I did a year of building surveying and realised probably midway through that year that was not going to be the career for me.
Yeah.
So moved to general practice.
Okay.
And then was offered a job. A friend's father or a very, very close friend's father, who was close friends with my parents, had an agency practice. And he offered me work experience, and then I ended up doing the rest of my degree, so the remaining 2 years over 4 years at day release.
It was quite a good thing to do, to kind of try it out, see if you liked it, and then
it's hard work.
Study through it.
It's hard work because you're working full time, really, and going to uni 1 day of the week, so getting all your uni work to do sort of evenings, weekends, but also being expected to work. And if I say the years that was, the property market was booming.
Okay.
So there was a lot of work to be done. And so I had to do all of my work as well as doing my uni. So I didn't really get the uni experience that you'd get if you were there full time, of going out and drinking all the time.
And did you get kind of told, or was it just a general vibe that you had to have a degree and you had to be chartered back then?
I didn't get told I had to do that. I think I'd started on that route, and so therefore in my head that was the way. And then once you get started on the kind of degree route and you're in a job, everybody that I worked for was chartered.
Okay.
So it was kind of, that's what you do. You do the RSCS route, you have all your interviews, you do your exams, and you become ARICS. That's what you do. And I think also, and I don't want to throw the kind of sex...
MRICS these days.
Oh, there you go. That's showing my age, see? I wasn't an M, I was an A. I was the original, the OG, the OG RICS.
Yeah.
Not throwing the sexism card in as well. I think probably also in the back of my mind was if I wanted to get ahead, I would need to have the same thing as everybody else had, and everybody else around me, or sort of people slightly above me, my peer group, that's what they were doing. And I thought probably if I didn't do that, then would I get to where I wanted to get to? Probably
I think happily now with the RSCS there are different routes. So as you were working at the time, you could have after 5 years gone for a kind of direct route in. You'd still have had to have done some RSCS papers, but you probably wouldn't have had to have had that degree on the Wednesday.
Good.
So I think today...
I hope that's encouraging more people.
I really hope so. Claudia, who works for me, she's obviously looking at that, and obviously we're debating whether she's debating, I'm not telling her anything, but she's debating whether to do that or not. But I don't think you'd have to have your property-related degree in the first place, or a post-grad degree in the first place, if you've got 5 years having done it. And you have to start the clock and write papers and sort of a diary, not like we had to do a diary.
Oh, I've forgotten all about that.
But you have to have obviously not just been sat in the office not doing relevant
And you
experience.
don't have to do all the different disciplines, or do you still have to?
You still have to have a breadth, but you don't have to have as many as you and I did. So you and I worked together when we were at Weatherall, Green and Smith.
We did.
And also when we moved to Donaldson's as a team.
Lots of happy memories.
Two really happy memories. But I don't think we're going to talk about those today.
That's a whole other show.
We won't do that. But then I went to a different company and you went to a different company, and it was then that you began to decide to do events, to set up your event company. What kind of led you to that place, and how did that come about?
I love property. Always loved property. I was really happy as a surveyor. I had brilliant memories, had such a laugh, had a great career. But I think certain things in your life change your views on things. So I had children, babies, and I think on those periods of maternity leave where you start to that kind of, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to go back to? Agencies, I don't know, I think I started looking at the parts of the job that I loved the most. And the part of the job that I loved the most was when we got a new instruction and you got a new building and the landlord had spent a fortune, or the owner had spent a fortune, upgrading it, refurbishing it, or a new building was coming onto the market. I loved doing the launch and planning the launch of those new buildings. And then once it was up and going and you were sort of actually doing your job and having to sort of show people around and do the inquiry schedules, that I loved less than the initial, here you go, here's a new instruction, go and launch it to the market. So that to me seemed like a great kind of sideways move, so staying within the property industry but focusing on the bit that I really loved. So I just, after the birth of my second child, thought I'd set up a business and do that.
And here we are today.
Here we are today, 16 years and a pandemic later.
So when you first started, because obviously I've looked and known you for a long time and seen what you've been doing, but when you first started, you were definitely doing the single building launches. And I think obviously there was a market for, there's a lot more properties to launch then. And obviously there were people out there, your competitors were kind of doing it in a different way. Whereas now I think that you're still doing that, but that you've moved more into doing the business community asset management and creating an environment on business parks where we know our audiences really well, and that we adapt our events to that, so that we can obviously, keep hold of the S of the ESG. It's really important that the social impact and the reach and our audiences are measured and known about, so that we understand exactly what's happening. And that obviously landlords, it's really important that landlords provide that service so that they attract companies who wish to join a like-minded place with a character that is already there. It helps retain tenants, it helps retain their staff, and we found it to be very useful. We've been doing that for about 8 to 10 years, and you started on the journey with us as back in the day when we.
So how long have we been working on Croxy? 9 years?
Yeah, it's about that.
Yeah. That was that was the first community business park projects that we got.
And back in the day, it's quite different because we didn't know how many people were going to turn up. I always say to you, it could be 550 or 500. We don't really know. But you've got a great dark art of always knowing exactly how much PIMS to buy to make sure there's enough.
Yeah. Well, we guesstimate. I mean, you get, because as you just said, you get to know your audience and you get to know. So you know so at a summer event, you'll know roughly how many people are going to come along, but you never truly know. So the clue is to always know where the nearest supermarket is, because there have been many quick dashes to get, or the weather changes, so all of a sudden you think you're going to have a lukewarm day and it's boiling hot day, so all of a sudden you run out of lemonade, you run out of ice, you run out of, so you need to know, always need to know where the nearest supermarket is.
I've driven for ice for you, and I've driven for PIMS for you.
Many people have driven burgers, burger van, burger buns.
Yes.
All the things you run out of.
But we need to remember it's a huge sign of success when more people turn up.
Love it. I'd rather go to the
we have
supermarket.
To remind ourselves in the moment, maybe next time.
As you're doing a supermarket trolley dash, pushing old ladies out the way in the aisles, going, no, I need all that lemonade.
Having to get them to buy it for us because they were in the.
That was it. I was trying to buy PIMS in Slough, being told I could only buy 5 bottles at a time, and I needed 10. Yeah. So having to pay the lady behind me. Yeah. To buy mine and put it with her shopping. That I've forgotten all about that. Yes. Highlight
of our
the guy in the cashiers at Morrison's thinking I was an alcoholic, buying very expensive PIMS.
No, very good. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been really nice to have a trip down memory lane and to hear how you're getting on, and hopefully we've got some more to come.
Hope so.
We've just pitched on something recently.
Hope so.
It's very exciting. And it's really good, actually, that, that we're being held by clients as ownership changes, because everyone's beginning to realise that the S of ESG is important to continue longer than the ownership of the asset. And we're talking a lot to landlords about that. But obviously, we've got great experience of that actually happening to us. So hopefully, long may that continue.
I think it really is important. I think it should. I think if you start an events programme on a business park, it should be part and parcel of the business park offering, like the gardening, like the cleaning. Because people come to expect it, and it does help foster that kind of sense of community.
And let's be honest, from an occupier's point of view, they don't necessarily realise that it's been sold and the ownership has changed, and they just want the same services that they bought into when they took the lease in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah. Dream team. Thanks, Roz.
You're welcome.